Are you tired of studying for hours and feeling like nothing actually sticks? Like your mind keeps wandering, so you check your phone, you take another break, and then at the end of the day, you're exhausted because you barely got through anything. But then you see some of the top students studying for 12 hours a day without burning out. And you're like, how are they doing that? How is that even possible? Well, here's the thing. It's not about grinding nonstop. It's about having a system, a way to set up your day so you can stay focused for longer, 12 hours, and actually remember what you're studying. And I actually used the same system when I was studying for my medical board exams, like for the PLE where I ranked third overall, and for my specialty boards in internal medicine where I ranked first. And so in this video, I'm gonna share with you my system for studying 12 hours a day, and we'll talk about when you should actually use this approach, the setup you need to maintain your energy and your focus all throughout that 12 hours, and then the schedule, what it actually looks like. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so just to be clear, I don't do 12 hours of studying every day. This 12-hour study routine, it's more like a tool and not a lifestyle. A tool that I use whenever I'm studying for a really big exam and I only have probably a couple of months or weeks to prepare for it, and I have to cover tons of material in a short amount of time, or even when I'm running up against a deadline. And the longest that I've done this was probably 3 months. Most days I would hit 12 hours in that day, and some days it was more like 10. But here's why it's so useful. So imagine that you have two students studying for the same exam. So student A is studying 12 hours a day, and then student B is studying 6 hours a day. So that's a 6-hour difference every single day, right? So now imagine that this goes on for 3 months. So that's 6-hour difference times 90 days, 3 months, that's equal to 540 additional hours of studying for student A. And so student A is literally gonna be weeks ahead of student B. And that means that student A will be able to cover way more study material, will be able to do way more practice tests, and will build way deeper understanding of everything that they've learned. And obviously, when exam day comes, who's gonna have the better chance of passing the exam, or getting a higher score, or actually accomplishing what they set out to do? It's gonna be student A, right? Because they put in more time and energy, and they're literally days and even weeks ahead of student B. And I actually learned this from Kobe Bryant in one of his interviews. He talked about how he got ahead of his competition by putting in more work every single day. And here's what he said.
If your job is to try to be the best basketball player you can be, right? To do that, you have to practice, you have to train, right? You want to train as much as you can, as often as you can. So if you get up at 10 in the morning, train at 11, right? 12, say 12, train at 12, train for 2 hours, 12 to 2. You have to let your body recover. So you eat, recover, whatever. You get back out, you train, start training again at 6. Train from 6 to 8, right? And now you go home, you shower, you eat dinner, you go to bed, you wake up, you do it again, right? Those are 2 sessions, right? Now imagine you wake up at 3, you train at 4. You go 4 to 6, come home, breakfast, relax, blah, blah, blah. Now you're back at it again, 9 to 11, right? You relax, and now all of a sudden you're back at it again, 2 to 4, and now you're back at it again, 7 to 9. Look how much more training I have done by simply starting at 4. Right? And so now you do that, and as the years go on, the separation that you have with your competitors and your peers just grows larger and larger and larger and larger and larger. And by year 5 or 6, doesn't matter what kind of work they do in the summer, they're never going to catch up because they're 5 years behind. Right? So it makes sense to get up and start your day early because you can get more work in.
All right, so now that you've decided that you wanted to do this 12-hour study routine, now let's talk about the setup and how to do it. Because what you do even before you sit down to study, that's gonna determine whether you can actually maintain your energy and focus for the entire 12 hours. So the first thing, and this is something that most students completely underestimate, is sleep. Because you absolutely cannot study for long hours if you're not getting at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. I know, it sounds counterintuitive, you're thinking, wait, if I'm already studying 12 hours a day, where am I supposed to find the time to sleep? But here's the thing. Chris Bailey mentions in his book, Hyperfocus, that for every hour of sleep that you'll lose 2 hours of productivity the next day. So if you're only sleeping 6 hours or less, you're not getting more things done. You're actually gonna get less done the next day and make it harder for yourself. Or, that super frustrating feeling where you're reading a sentence and it looks really simple, but you just can't seem to understand it, and you have to go back and read it 3 or 4 times just to understand what it's trying to say. Yeah, those are all signs that you're not getting enough sleep. And Matthew Walker actually mentioned this in his book, Why We Sleep. And he said, Questions that can draw out signs of insufficient sleep are, if you didn't set an alarm clock, would you sleep past that time? If so, you need more sleep than you're giving yourself. Do you find yourself at your computer screen reading and then rereading and perhaps reading again the same sentence? This is often a sign of fatigued, underslept brain. So bottom line, you have to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. And that is a non-negotiable when it comes to being able to focus and study for 12 hours a day. Okay, so the next thing, and this one's huge, is doing some form of exercise in the morning. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy, like just going out for a 30-minute jog around the block should be fine. And that's actually what I did when I was studying for my big exams. And here's what it works. First, it just lifts your mood. When you first wake up and you're still feeling a bit groggy, right? And that's mainly from what's called a sleep inertia, or the carryover effects of sleep into the wakefulness state. But if you go for a run, it's like it jumpstarts your entire day. Like it helps you switch from that, that half asleep mode into, okay, let's actually do something mode. And plus, it makes you feel like you've already accomplished something first thing in the morning, and that just sets a good tone for the rest of the day. Oh, and the final bonus here is that exercise actually improves your attention, your focus, and your memory, which are kind of important when you're trying to study for exams. And the third one is caffeine, like caffeinate yourself. Like I know that some people aren't fond of drinking coffee, and that's fine. But for those who drink coffee, timing really matters. Like most people drink coffee at the wrong times. Like they just grab a cup right after waking up thinking it'll help them start the day. But here's the problem. Your body naturally produces cortisol in the morning, and that's the chemical that wakes you up. And so cortisol levels are already high when you first wake up, and if you drink coffee right away, the coffee or the caffeine isn't really doing much for you. And the other mistake is drinking coffee too late in the day. Like a lot of people have their afternoon cup of coffee and then they wonder why they can't fall asleep at night. So here's what you should do instead. Like drink your coffee about an hour or two after you wake up, because that's when your cortisol naturally starts to dip. So the caffeine can actually kick in right when you need it. And if you're like me and you feel sleepy after lunch, that's a good time for a second cup. But the key is to make sure that that'll be your last one, because caffeine has a half-life of about 6 hours, meaning half of it is still in your system 6 hours later. So if you want to sleep around 10 p.m., you have to cut off your caffeine by 2 p.m. And that gives your body enough time to clear it out before bedtime. All right, so now let's get into the actual schedule. Like what does a 12-hour study day actually look like in practice? And here's how mine usually goes. So at 5:30 a.m. I wake up and I go for a run or a jog, and then at 6 to 7 a.m. I shower, make coffee, and just get ready for the day. And then 7 to 12 p.m. this is when I do my 3 90-minute study sessions with 10-minute breaks in between. So that's 5 hours of studying in the morning. And then 12 to 12:30 p.m. that's my lunch break. 12:30 to 5:30 p.m. another 3 90-minute study sessions with 10-minute breaks. And then that's another 5 hours. And then 5:30 to 6 p.m. that's my dinner break. And then 6 to 9 p.m. 2 more 90-minute study sessions. And so by 9:30 p.m. I've already hit 12 hours of studying. And then 9:30 to 10 p.m. this is buffer time. Like if I'm in the middle of something, maybe I'm halfway through a page, I'll just finish it up during this window. And then 10 to 10:30 p.m. that's my wind down time. Like I'll take a shower or reflect on what I got done that day, and I plan out what I'm gonna do tomorrow. Now, a couple of things about this schedule. I usually don't eat breakfast. I know that sounds kind of weird, but here's why. Even if I eat healthy stuff, stuff like high protein, low carb meals, I still get super sleepy a few hours after eating. So I just do the 16-8 intermittent fasting, and it keeps my energy way more stable throughout the morning. And each study session is 90 minutes because Andrew Huberman talks about how 90 minutes is basically the optimal amount of time that you can maintain deep focus. So that's what I stick to. And here's probably the most important thing about this schedule, which is the 10-minute breaks. So during this 10-minute breaks, what you should be doing are what's called as low stimuli activities, like no YouTube, no Instagram, no TikTok, and definitely no Netflix. Because the thing about studying is that it's honestly kind of boring. So if you spend your break scrolling through Instagram or watching YouTube, your brain gets used to this constant stimulation. So when you go back to studying, it's just way harder to focus because your brain doesn't want to do it. So you're basically training yourself to crave that high stimulation, which just makes it harder and harder to focus on studying, which is low stimulation. So during those breaks, what I would suggest, just walk around or make yourself some coffee, or like look out the window or even talk to someone, anything but your phone. Because the more you train yourself to do low stimuli stuff during breaks, the easier it is to stay focused when you get back to studying. And now that you know how to stay focused and study for 12 hours, the next question you might have is, how do you actually study faster and more effectively without taking down notes? And if you're interested in that, you might want to check out this video right here where I talk all about it. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in that video. Bye.